If you're planning a trip to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, or you've got the famous Coeur d'Alene resort on your bucket list, this video is about to save you a lot of guesswork. My name is Tiffany and I plan golf trips for entrepreneurs doing 7 figures and up in their business. So think incredible experiences on the golf course, unforgettable group experiences, and best of all for our members, absolutely zero stress. Everything planned and done for you. Our group, which is called Mastermind 19, just finished up a trip here at Coeur d'Alene. So after spending 4 days here, I can tell you everything about what it's like to stay here, from the good, the bad, and everything in between. In this video, I'm breaking down the location, the room, amenities, and whether the price tag actually matches the experience. I'll give you my honest rating at the end, so if you're trying to decide whether this trip is worth it, stick around. First, let's talk about the location, because I actually feel like that's one of the benefits of the Coeur d'Alene resort is where it is actually located. Coeur d'Alene itself is the name of the city in Idaho where this is located, but if you want to play the signature loading green course and want to be like where everyone's like, oh, the Coeur d'Alene course, that's the resort course at the Coeur d'Alene resort. I always like to preface that because there is actually another Coeur d'Alene course and it's attached to the Coeur d'Alene casino, which I learned as I was researching that those two are not the same thing, and that if you want to play the signature course, you have to stay at the Coeur d'Alene resort. What's nice about it is that the Coeur d'Alene course is actually really easy to access if you're staying at the Coeur d'Alene resort. But we'll get into that a little bit further into this video. But as far as the location goes, I actually think this is one of the more ideal situations for someone who's traveling with a family or you're traveling with a spouse, because there's so much to do within walking distance of the resort that I never was bored, honestly. So for context, I do not golf. So when I go on these trips, I'm there truly just to coordinate, make sure everyone gets to where they need to and that everyone has a great time. But I don't golf. So while everyone is off golfing, I'm usually trying to find some way to fill my time, which is why you're gonna see videos pop up on this channel about things to do while everyone else is golfing in some of these more bucket list golf destinations. What's nice about Coeur d'Alene is that you're within walking distance of a lot of attractions that I think would fill the time easily if you're traveling with a spouse or a family. So right in front of the hotel, there's actually a really cute little garden area and it leads into a trail, which I took the trail a few times. However, close to the end of our stay, they were actually closing off a lot of it because Ironman was in town, like the race or whatever. I could only experience it the first couple of days that we were there, but the walking trail is actually really cute and it's really scenic. It does stop at a random point where it just becomes houses and it turns into like college. And I did get a little lost. If you keep following the trail though, and you just go backwards the same ways that you came, you actually don't end up running into that problem. But if you just keep taking the trail and trying to see how far it goes, you will eventually end up in the college. But what's really nice too is that along the trail, there's also nice little pit stops right against the water. They have like a little beachy area. They have little spots where you can stop and maybe have lunch and look at the water overlooking the lake, etc. There's a lot of water activities to do at the Coeur d'Alene resort, especially within walking distance of the resort. As well, they also have a lot of rentals in the area. There's a flight cruise, so you could actually take a flight. It's like a small little helicopter almost. It goes over the water and it just goes there and back, but it looks like a really cool experience. I didn't get to experience it because the first day they were there, it was too windy to take out, but a lot of water activities to do. They have cruises as well. They have little boat tours. So there's a plethora of things to do just right in front of the resort. And then within walking distance, you actually have Sherman Street, which is their most popular downtown area. There's a lot of boutiques, coffee shops. There's a lot of just niche little stores. They have this little mall area called the Shops at Coeur d'Alene where it has a little bit more like niche stores, or if you're looking for like a touristy gift to give someone, they have quite a few of the little Coeur d'Alene souvenir shops to give out. So I would definitely recommend if you are traveling again with a spouse or with family, making some time and exploring that downtown area. The only note that I would make is that unfortunately it seems like the downtown area opens pretty late, at least based on my experience. So I'm an early bird when I'm on these trips because there's usually so much happening that I want to have some me time in the morning. So I usually wake up around 5:30 and I'll go on a walk, get a coffee, all of those things. And I noticed that a lot of the coffee shops actually in town didn't open until 7. Which I find to be a little late for a coffee shop, but that could just be personal preference. And especially if you're someone who doesn't wake up early on trips, it may not matter to you at all. I was able to find one coffee shop that was open at 6 a.m., which was the Coeur d'Alene Coffee Co. I would highly recommend their Silver Lake coffee. It was actually really good. And I was kind of scared of it at first, but take their word for it. It is actually a really good cup of coffee. But I would just say a lot of the businesses, like the coffee shops, all of those things don't open until about 7. So if you're an early riser, then you may want to just get coffee at the hotel because that is actually open, I believe, all the time, the little lounge area coffee shop. But if you are not an early riser, then that may not even be an issue for you. But if you are an early riser, that is something that I would definitely consider. Now let's get into the hotel and the rooms itself, because I actually think this is a really interesting topic to breach. So as far as the room itself, it's got amazing views. Again, we were right on the water, and I felt like, at least for my room, because I had the lake view area, I had a little terrace, I had a little nook in my room. So I had a really great spot in my room. However, there were a few things that I wanted to know about the room that I feel like could make or break the experience for you, depending on what your expectation is of this room is. So I will say the room itself is a little dated. I know that this hotel has been around for some time, and it may not be the end of the world for you. It is a really nice room, but it feels dated, especially once I get into how much this room actually costs a night. You could find a lot nicer of a luxury hotel for that price point versus what we actually received with the Coeur d'Alene Resort. I do know part of it is the prestige of being at the Coeur d'Alene Resort, and you get access to the Coeur d'Alene course, all of those things, but I do feel like for the price point that they were charging, they could have gotten a better deal or made the rooms a little bit nicer. Also too, I will say I had an issue with this, but I didn't hear this from anyone else in our group, but there were actually several instances where there was bugs in my room. So I think that this is just a byproduct of being close to water. There's probably a lot of bugs in general, but I found that there was a lot of spiders in my room. It looks a little dirty, and it looks like there's like a bug right there. So the only thing that sucks about this room is that there's so many spiders. And especially in my little nook area right against the window, I found that there was a lot of spiders, and so I either had to just kill them myself or call someone to kill them, because unfortunately I am a girl and I wasn't gonna do some of them. So I would just say be mindful of the fact that spiders are pretty much everywhere on this property, or at least in my room there were. Maybe it's a lake view thing, but I had a spider pop up in my room probably once to twice a day while I was there. One of the things I really liked about the room is that it has this like living area. Room itself is like the bed, and you have that on a little bit higher of a plane than the living area. So there was a couch, 2 chairs, and a TV and a desk, but I would say that it really actually made it feel very segregated because it was on 2 separate planes. So the bed felt like it was its own area. I was able to unwind and turn off in there, and then the living area was its own separate area. So I felt like I could work, eat, etc. in that area. And then the terrace was connected to the living area too. So I just felt like that was a really cool touch. I really love, it's very common in like mid-century modern style homes. This is not mid-century modern, but I feel like that was a really nice touch to have the living area on a different plane than the bed. I know some rooms include a fireplace. Mine didn't have a fireplace, so I would imagine if you're going when it's a little bit colder, that fireplace would be really cool. We'll say on some of the days on the trip, it was pretty chilly, but luckily I never needed the fireplace. But there were definitely days where I underestimated how cold it was. So the next thing I'll touch on is actually the restaurants, because I feel like this is actually one of the pain points that I had with this place, but it may not be an issue for you depending on how many people you're traveling with. So we usually travel in big groups, anywhere between 20 to 40 people. So restaurants tend to be an issue with that group size in general. So again, this might just be an us issue type of thing, but because the hotel does not have a huge plethora of restaurants on site, we oftentimes had to go off-site to eat. So on the actual property, there's Dockside, which is where that's gonna be your breakfast and lunch spot. And then there was Beverly's and Whispers, which Whispers is more of like a lounge, and it's not very like focused, but it has appetizers, there's a bar there. So it was a cool hangout spot afterwards, but I wouldn't recommend eating there. I believe is only open for breakfast and lunch. I don't believe they're open for dinner. And then Beverly's, which is a really nice restaurant there, is open for dinner, but reservations can get a little tricky, especially if you're traveling with a large group. So I would recommend planning that in advance. But I would say if you are someone who likes to try new restaurants and stuff, you wanted to stay close to the Coeur d'Alene Resort, you were probably only going to be able to do Beverly's for dinner, and then again breakfast at Dockside for the other meals. I would actually recommend going off-site. Have a connection with different restaurants in the area, so you can actually take the Coeur d'Alene transportation like to those restaurants. One of those is called Cedars, and that one was really cool because it's like a floating restaurant. It's sitting on top of the water, and you can kind of feel that the restaurant is moving at all times. So if you're someone who is incredibly motion sickness, or you're traveling with someone who has a lot of motion sickness, that may not be the move for you, because while it didn't feel like you were like swinging by any means, but you could feel a subtle just like uneasiness that you were never truly in one place at one time. I thought it was cool, and I think a lot of our group thought it was cool, but I did have someone in the group who felt a little sensitive to the motion and would say if you have someone in your life that you be sensitive to that motion, that may not be the best move for you. But again, they do have partnerships with some other restaurants in the area. You would just have to take the Coeur d'Alene shuttle to those restaurants. But as far as the actual restaurants on property, it's just Dockside and it's Beverly's. Now Beverly's is really nice, and Beverly's, I believe their chef has like a James Beard Award or a Michelin or something along those lines. Like it was prestigious to some extent. So I would definitely make sure that you spend at least one night at Beverly's. I got the steak there and it was actually really good. I know some other people got like stuff, so I know that it was a really great level of experience for us, but I would definitely make sure you have Beverly's at least once on the trip just to really make sure you're getting the most of the Coeur d'Alene experience. So let's get into some of the amenities that are also offered at the hotel that I think would actually work really well if you're either staying there to play golf or you're getting dragged there and you don't necessarily love golf, but you just want to hang out and see what else there is to do. So first I would say the pool area is actually really cool. So they have two different levels. So there is regular ground in pool area, and there's a lot of tanning seats. There's a lifeguard on duty. So that is where you're gonna wanna go if you're traveling with kids. That's gonna be a lot more contained of an area. However, right below it, like you just take literally steps from the pool and you have a little beachy area that feels a little bit like a private beach because there's only about 8 chairs. So there's not a ton of chairs down there. And I would also say it's maybe not the most kid-friendly because down there it's actually not really sand, it's more rock. However, it's really cool if you want to give like the beach experience and the private beach experience without having to go to the pool or go to the other sandy area that's at the resort. The only thing I would mention about this is that this is not physically at the resort. You actually have to take a taxi or a water taxi in order to get to this location, which is also the same if you're golfing out there. If you are golfing out there, it's not located right on the course. It's actually located about 20 to 30 minutes away, depending on which you decide to take. But what's cool is they actually give you 2 different ways to get there. So the most popular option is actually their water taxi, which is their Eagle taxi as they call it. It's a little wooden boat. It fits maybe 16 to 20 people on there, and it comes every 30 minutes basically, and it alternates between the Coeur d'Alene Resort and the pool golf course area. The only thing to note here is if you are golfing, you cannot bring your clubs onto this water taxi option. You would have to take it to the actual taxi option. They'll get there in about 30 minutes. They'll leave it for you right in front of the pro shop. But you yourself could get on the water taxi, which is a lot cooler of an experience, I'm not gonna lie. But if you don't wanna leave your clubs behind and you don't wanna travel without them, then I would recommend taking just the regular shuttle taxi option. In order to get to both the pool and to the golf course, you have to travel out. It's not located physically on the course. Basically, in a separate area past the lake that you would need to get to. But it's really cool, and I would definitely recommend taking the water taxi option. It's really cool, especially for kids. Traveled a few times on there just having to get to the course and back, and every time I ever traveled with the kids, they all loved it. So it doesn't go so fast where it's way too fast for them, but I will say it does have a little bit of speed to it. So be prepared to keep your hats on. Like you have to probably hold your hat, or if you're traveling with anything flyable, make sure you secure it down because it does go somewhat fast, but not like fast to where it's like, dang, you're like now fast and furious on the water. One of the amenities I didn't get to make use of while I was there was the gym. I am an active girly. As you can tell with that Aura watch, I am an active girly, but I will say the actual gym itself has operating hours, which I found strange. I'm used to gyms pretty much just being like, hey, it's open 24/7, you can go in as you please. But this one is locked for some reason, and there's someone who would operate there. So our hours of operation, and they don't open until 6. And again, because I'm an early bird and I like to kind of morning started right away, because I usually have other things that are in place that would mess timing wise up, I would say that it opens at 6, which I found to be a little late, but it might be right on time for some people who are just traveling and wanting to have fun, all those things. But it did look cool. It looked like there was a healthy mix of like weight training, etc. So I would definitely say if you are someone who is okay with the fact that it doesn't open until 6, like you maybe have some later tea times, or you're doing this while you have some downtime, then I would definitely recommend checking out the gym. It looks really cool. The spa was really zen. I actually didn't go in for like a massage, which is normally what I would do there. I actually went for a blowout. So the actual hair part of the spa was actually really nice as well. It was very, very cute. There's not a lot of chairs, which I actually thought added to the experience, because there's nothing worse than when you go to like a hair salon and there's like a ton of people. You feel like you're yelling at your hairstylist just to have have a conversation, like just having a conversation with my hairstylist and maybe the person over from me. But it was very chill, very relaxed, and I liked the fact that it wasn't a ton of people in there. So I felt like the experience itself was actually really great. It's very zen. I would definitely recommend checking out the spa while you're there, especially if you are a spouse that's traveling and you don't necessarily want to go out onto the golf course. The spa is a great way to fill your time. Another thing that I think is really interesting is because you're on water, there's a lot of cruise options, which I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, but didn't really go into depth as far as what those look like. So they had a few different cruises depending on how much time you had to kill or what you wanted to get out of the experience. So there was one where it took you on like a 3-hour ride of the lake, and you'd see like a bunch of different tourist spots. You would see, they would give you basically a lay of the land, and that one was their lady cruise or ladybird cruise or something along those lines. They also had some where you could go at sunset. That one was a little bit more romantic. It's not necessarily like filling you in on like all the details, but definitely a romantic option, especially if you can't get into Beverly's. That might be worth it to have dinner on the water with your spouse and just take in the sunset, take in the beautiful views. I would say the views on the water were gorgeous at Beverly's, so we could see what sunset looked like in the water and everything, because Beverly's is a really nice spot in the hotel. So I would definitely recommend, if you have the opportunity to, add that romantic cruise dinner option. But they had a lot of different cruise options. They had some that were longer than others. So even if you didn't want to do like the 2-hour one or the 3-hour one, they had some that were like 5 hours. So there was plenty of options depending on how much time you had to kill. I didn't make use of any of them, but they have just a plethora of cruise options as well as boat options, rentals, etc. So I would definitely recommend, if you're looking for ways to kill your time and maybe you're not a city person and you don't really want to explore downtown, plenty of water options. This might be a little niche, and this is really more so if you're planning like a big event or you're planning a conference or something, but I would say the conference center was a little dated. The conference banquet team was actually really good to work with. The only thing I would note is that anytime, well, I say that, but one time I just needed like pens put on the desk, and they usually do that for me automatically when I go to these places, but they didn't put that out. And then when I called and asked for them, it took like 30 minutes to get. So I think they're really good if you let them know ahead of time what you need. And that was partly on me. I probably should have just mentioned that beforehand. But I would say anything that you needed timely wise may not be the best with the banquet team. But if you give them enough of an advance notice, they will make it happen. So I thought that that was really great. And they were really easy to work with. And the chef that they had brought for the breakfast was really nice. So conference wise, I actually really like the conference team. I would say the rooms are a little bit dated, but I feel like that's kind of just part of the resort itself. That's not really a criticism. It's more so just a fact that it's maybe not as nice as some of the other rooms that we've rented before for a conference. But again, I feel like that's such a niche person who's looking to plan like a trip like conference wise there. But if you are, happy to answer any more questions if you have them in the comments below. One thing that I will say about working with the Coeur d'Alene team in particular is that transportation can be a little tricky. So I have a lot of moving pieces, obviously, because I'm traveling with a big group, and I usually plan everything out with transportation weeks in advance to make sure everything is set and good to go. I felt like there was never really clear communication with transportation while we were there. And, you know, thank God I was there because I was able to kind of move things around as I needed to. But I would just be wary of the fact that if you're planning on using the Coeur d'Alene transportation for a big group, it may not be the best solution. I would actually probably recommend going off-site with like a private shuttle company. I think they'll handle the business better. Just based on my experience, transportation seems to be crazy busy and don't really have the time to give individual care. So I don't recommend relying on the Coeur d'Alene transportation. They do have the taxis and the shuttles that come by every 30 minutes or so. Not like if you're trying to book like transportation, like a separate thing, but that team is all the same. So I find that a lot of times the team would take hours upon hours to get back to me because they were probably running their butts off doing something else. If you're traveling with the group, I'd probably recommend a private shuttle company. If you're just going with yourself or your spouse, I would actually probably recommend Ubers and Lyfts. It was actually really easy to get in that area. I took an Uber to a few different offsite golf courses that we happened to book in conjunction to the Coeur d'Alene resort. I found that it was actually really easy. It would come within minutes. I was scared that it might be too small to have like Uber Lyfts or whatever, but Coeur d'Alene actually has plenty of Ubers, plenty of Lyfts, and that is actually a really easy way to get around if you are not doing anything that's related to the resort. Like if you're going off-site for dinner, or if you're going to the shops, or you want to go explore a certain area, etc. Ubers and Lyfts are actually really easy to get, and I would personally recommend using those over using the transportation company that was at the resort. Now let's get into the thing that you've all been thinking about. How much does it cost a night? So given everything that I've just told you, I'm gonna let you guess right now. Put it in the comments. How much do you think it is a night? Don't look it up. Don't look it up. If you already know what it is, that's not the same. But if you don't know how much it is, leave a guess in the comments before I announce how much it is a night. When we went, it was $749 a night. So this is definitely on the more luxury end of hotels. Now, given everything that I've said as far as the room quality, the location, all the amenities, etc., I don't think that this is a bad value. I would just say that I found that I could get a better value elsewhere. I've stayed at really nice resorts and I've stayed at really not great resorts. So I think that this is somewhere in the middle, but as far as price-wise goes, this was definitely on the higher end. We would need to just stay there because the course that we wanted to play was located at the resort course, which I do think is kind of, necessary evil if you are wanting to play the floating green course and wanting to play the famous Coeur d'Alene resort course. You do have to stay on site to get access to it. As far as whether I think it's worth it or not, I personally think you could get away with going somewhere else unless you just really wanted to play that course. As far as rating wise, compared to some of the other trips I've been on and some of the other hotels I've been on, I would give it a 6 out of 10. It was good. There was a lot of things to do. It had a really beautiful view, and I love some of the smaller quirks about it, like the water taxi, the location, etc. But I would just say, given the room quality, given the experience with transportation, and given some of the one-off things that happened during the trip, I would just say that I think that the experience overall, I would give it a 6 out of 10. So it wasn't terrible, it wasn't great, it's just somewhere in the middle. But if you are really wanting to play that Coeur d'Alene course, it is a necessary evil, and I would definitely say it is worth it. That course is cool. I went there and just set up like a few things before the guys got there, and I was like, dang, this is actually a really cool course. I see why people want to play there. And like the pro shop's really cool, the pool is cool. So definitely think it has some great aspects to it, but as far as like the actual experience overall, I think you could get better value at another golf resort. That is it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. I'm going to some amazing golf locations, so there's definitely going to be more reviews in the future. And if you are traveling with a spouse, I'm actually going to be creating content that's specific for them and to see what they can do while you are golfing on the golf course. Or if you are a spouse and you're wondering, what the heck am I going to do while my husband golfs? I'm going to make content just for you. So make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.